My name's Laurel from Wildlife Rescuers. The northern suburbs deal with the larger animals, the kangaroos, the wombats, the wallabies. We're an organisation that cares, rescues and rehabs the wildlife. We've been going for I think about 10 years now, maybe more.
Rescuers receive some of their calls from the not-for-profit group Wildlife Victoria, the state's peak wildlife rescue and rehabilitation group, which runs a 24-hour emergency phone service.
The first thing I do, I look what's around. I try and think the way the animal does. So if I see it's looking one way, then I need to know what is that way. So if there's bushes, there's roads, and determine how many people I need to get in, whether it needs to be netted, whether I can use a pole, or whether I need a data. So I guess initial look of the situation is basically what is around and the animal if it's injured. Sometimes on a rescue I can get to the animal, it's standing there, it's not moving but it's in a danger zone. At the moment, road victims. We do get a lot of cruelty cases. Fence hanging kangaroos, there's a lot of them. People letting dogs off leads, chase the roos. She's been hit by a car. She's got the big gash in her leg, which this is unsavable. I hate putting them down. It's heartbreaking because they're actually looking you in the eye. But when they do look you in the eye, you see the pain they're in, and you can just imagine yourself having a broken leg or some horrific injury. To me, I kind of tend to go towards that. You're in so much pain, nothing I can do so. A pickup of an eastern grey kangaroo in a car park. Police ring in, they'll come and pick it up, but if we ring in, we have to drag it onto council property.
Laurel rescues up to 60 animals a month, racking up thousands of kilometres, for which she is reimbursed only 10 cents a kilometre by Wildlife Victoria. This does little to take the sting out of the petrol bills.
You need the funding. I mean, it's not easy making 1 million calls, in a week. And on a family, with a family on just the one wage, petrol is just atrocious.
Her task is made harder by the ongoing need to field calls from Wildlife Victoria staff seeking advice.
They lack the knowledge of the animals, they lack the training. I think the training, the experience, they need to be out there in the field first, at least for a couple of weeks, just to get the knowledge of the animals. They're asking me for information. Therefore, they're not doing their job. So the money is going to people who have no experience or no idea. It's just disappointing because we raise funds for us that goes strictly to the animals. That means all our equipment and everything like that and food. But Wildlife Vic raise funds for their paid staff.
After they are rescued, animals are brought to shelters like Wildhaven in St Andrews.
My name's Stella Reid. I live and my life is working with wildlife at a shelter called Wildhaven in St Andrews. Alan and I have been doing this for over 20 years. We care for orphan injured kangaroos. The condition the animals come into are equivalent to something you'd get in an emergency ward at a hospital. And so you get breaks, you get abrasions, you get bruising, everything humans get. They're creatures like us.
Wildhaven is a vastly different landscape from the smouldering ash and baked earth of almost 3 years ago. The Black Saturday fires raged across the property, destroying more than their home and belongings.
Didn't lose what the other people lost. They lost possessions they'd collected all their lives. Was personal belongings important to me, or was the wildlife? The animals were. Could I live without the personal belongings? Sure. Could I live without the wildlife? No. And that's what the fires did. It took away the bubbies.
In those early dark days, Stella and Alan reached out to Wildlife Victoria for help.
Here I am saying I have a wildlife shelter where everything's dead and I've got 800 bodies or more. So we didn't see anything. We didn't have electricity, we didn't have any phones, we didn't have mobiles. We had no connection with the outside world, so we had no idea what people were doing. We actually thought we were alone.
Alan and Stella were not as alone as first thought. People did care. They just hadn't been told.
One man, he donated $25,000 to help with our fencing. Our fencing cost $60,000. Our fox-proofing of 5 acres. He contacted us to say he hoped the money, he said it wasn't much, he hoped it would help. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And when I asked Wildlife Victoria, they said, oh yes, yes he gave you 5. I said, think again. When she got round to saying 25, I said, how can you forget? You made out that we got no money after the fires. You made out nobody donated. How can you forget one man's donation of 25,000? And she said, we got 5 million. She said, it's nothing. It just slipped my mind. It meant that one person in the whole world cared enough to donate money to us. One person. That's what it meant. Because I thought nobody knew us, nobody knew about us, nobody cared. Did it hurt then and there? A little bit. But then to find out that one man did.
After confronting Wildlife Victoria, they received their $25,000, only to soon discover more donations were missing.
6PR radio station in Western Australia, they contacted us to say that listeners would like an interview because they've all donated $12,000. In total, hundreds and hundreds of people. I knew nothing about it. It all went to Wildlife Vic. And they had to contact Wildlife Vic to make sure that we got it. What Wildlife Vic wanted to know then was, how much were the cheques? They wanted 6PR to tell them how much. And the 6PR said, no, we gave it to you with all the names, all the information. You give them the right amount. And I tell you what, those two, 6PR and that man, were the only people in the whole of Australia that donated to us. I don't believe that now. I've heard people say we made squillions out of it. Wildlife Vic made it. We didn't.
Leader went to the organisation's headquarters in the city suburb of Fitzroy looking for answers. Was Wildlife Victoria involved with helping Stella and Alan Reid after the fires?
I believe so. I wasn't with the organisation, so I couldn't tell you specifically what happened. And I think there's there's certainly a bit of it's difficult to exactly say what happened because of the amount of money coming in, the lack of staffing. They helped where they could, and I really think they did an amazing job given the circumstances.
The Wildhaven have claimed that Wildlife Victoria withheld a number of donations directly to them when they had no phones, including a $25,000 donation by one individual which they never received and took a long time to get that. Do you know anything about this?
No, I couldn't comment on that. And that's been a really difficult thing for me. As soon as I walked in the door, I've had lots of these queries. And honestly, we just weren't in a position to even record some of this stuff. There are accusations out there and it's difficult. These people are emotionally traumatised by all of this. And and I know myself, if you're in that situation, you need to blame someone, you're angry. And we may not have done the right thing all the time. I can't say that we did.
With volunteers so disillusioned with Wildlife Victoria's role, and finances showing less than 6% of donations directly making it to the animals, the question of how the organisation believes it helps had to be asked.
Well, we link them so that we do have the ability to get the animals to them. And the other thing is that we do provide some subsidies for the food. I mean, these people are all volunteers and they take on these duties. It's not only time consuming, it's also very expensive. And we do these are direct things that we do, and we directly compensate our rescuers and transporters with some petrol claims. But the shelters and the rescuers wouldn't be able to do what they do without the phone service, and we really provide a great community service.
Yet your finances only show 6% of donations go to the wildlife. You don't feel this is misleading the public in any way?
Well, that's an anomaly that happened out of the fires, that we had lots. We have over 25,000 people donated. So that's our donor base. We don't have big corporates, and as I said, we don't have any government funding.
The organisation's office is a world away from the volunteers on the front line, who feel Wildlife Victoria are out of touch.
The donations aren't solely for animals. It's basically for the office staff and their running procedures. They don't help when an animal's involved.
When Stella asked Wildlife Victoria for a $50 donation to go towards a life-saving operation on Willow, a rescued joey, she was told no. The joey was in the care of Paula Roundtree, a pensioner who gives most of her time to caring for wildlife.
Paula said, I don't know if I can do it. It's over $400. Well, I said, how about we get a donation from all the people that were involved, from the transporter, from Wildlife Vic, from Annie, from me, from that whole chain of people to you. We've got 6 people. If we all put in, it'll make it a small amount, $50 each. That's doable. I did ask Wildlife Vic. They gave me a long spiel about carers help the animals, and so the answer for them was no. I don't know who they are anymore. I don't know what they do anymore. We are called carers, and we care for wildlife. They have a call centre. They're office workers, and they work in the city. We don't meet. We don't connect. We don't share information. It's harming our wildlife, and it's harming the health of the carers, because they're so passionate about what they do that it can break their spirits. And if it breaks their spirits and it goes that far, then the animals will suffer even more.